3 months had passed since Raccoon City vanished in fire. The world moved on, pretending not to notice the questions left behind. But Claire Redfield could not move on, not while her brother, Chris, remained somewhere in the shadows of Umbrella's empire. Her search littered across continents, falling scraps of intelligence, rumored whispers of defectors. All trails converged on one place, an Umbrella research facility, hidden within the industrial outskirts of Paris. Under the cover of night, Claire infiltrated the compound, but Umbrella had anticipated the intruder. Armed security forces poured in from the barracks, their precision revealing this was no ordinary guard detail. They had been waiting. A helicopter descended over the compound, its searchlight baiting her in blinding white. Soldiers surrounded her. She was outnumbered. Umbrella closed in, and as the butt of a rifle struck her shoulder, the last thing Claire felt was not defeat, but resolve. Wherever they took her, whatever came next, she would find her brother, and Umbrella would pay for standing in her way. Rodrigo Juan Raval, an Umbrella military commander stationed far from the public eye, took charge of her apprehension. She was transported under heavy guard and ferried across the oceans until the world she saw disappeared behind the clouds and fog. Her destination was Rockfort Island, a remote Umbrella prison complex where secrets were buried, along with the people who learned them. Once inside, Claire found herself dragged through cold corridors and into a holding room. Questions came at her like blows: who she was, why she had infiltrated Umbrella property, and what she hoped to find. Her refusal to yield only hardened her captors. Eventually she was thrown into a cell, struck by a guard, and plunged into unconsciousness. Time passed, minutes or hours, she couldn't tell. But finally woke her was not pain, but thunder. Explosions rocked the island. Through the bars of her cell, Claire saw fire illuminating the night sky. Rockfort Island was under attack. By whom? She did not know. But the devastation was total. Umbrella's personnel was scattered like ants. The island's once formidable defenses reduced to smoking ruin. But the bombardment carried disaster with it. Containers ruptured, and viral samples spilled into the air, along with dormant BMWs, which were unleashed as well. Within minutes, the island's surviving staff succumbed to chaos. Rockfort Island became yet another nightmare. Claire had no choice but to fight her way out. Although isolated and haunted, she found an unexpected ally: Steve Burnside, another prisoner swept into Umbrella's machinations. Together the two navigated the ruins of the island, relying on instinct and fleeting moments of trust. But their escape was far from simple. Rockfort had its masters, and they were watching. Albert Ashford, the deranged commander of the island. His presence was felt in every trap, every mocking gesture woven into the collapsing architecture around them. Yet the true darkness behind him was his twin sister, Alexia Ashford, a figure thought to be dead for years. Against all odds, Claire and Steve escaped Rockfort's ruins, only to find themselves redirected, manipulated into journeying straight into Antarctica, another Umbrella stronghold, more isolated than the last. There, Alfred met his end in the frozen corridors, mortally wounded by Steve's desperate defiance. Claire faced and overcame a grotesque mutation, born from Alex Ashford, patriarch of the Twisted Bloodline. But as she and Steve attempted to escape aboard a snowmobile, Alexia Ashford, revived and reawakened, lashed out with her writhing tentacles. Her fury reached for them. For Claire Redfield, the nightmare was far from over. While Claire fought for survival an ocean away, her brother Chris lived in the shadows. The surviving STARS members, those few who had escaped the horrors of Spencer Mansion, had scattered into hiding, hunted by both Umbrella and by the truth they carried. Then a message reached out to him. Lieutenant S. Kennedy had discovered that Claire had been captured. She was alive, but imprisoned on Rockfort Island. Chris didn't hesitate. Crossing continents and checkpoints under false identities, he pushed towards Rockfort with a single goal: to bring his sister home. But when he reached the island had already fallen to the T-virus. Its survivors dead or changed, and among the ruins waiting for him was a ghost. Albert Wesker, his former captain. The man they all watched die beneath the claws of a tyrant. Their confrontation revealed a devastating truth. Claire was no longer on the island. She had been dragged into the frozen depths of Antarctica. Chris followed that lead, Within the icy catacombs of Antarctica's umbrella base, brother and sister finally reunited in the midst of chaos. Their first instinct was to find Steve Burnside, the boy who had protected Claire with everything he had left. Claire reached Steve at last, only to witness the final moments of his humanity, corrupted by Alexia's influence and reshaped into something monstrous. Steve broke free of his mutation just long enough to save her. His final act of will. Chris fought his own battle. Alexia Ashford, fully awakened and ascended beyond human form, stalked him through the burning corridors. Her power dwarfed anything Umbrella had created before. Knowing neither time nor hope remained, Chris armed the facility's self-destruct system before returning to face her. Only a prototype weapon, one built for the sole purpose of destroying abominations like her, gave him a fighting chance. And in that fighting chance, Chris struck the killing blow and watched the last heir of the Ashford line fall. With alarms wailing and the base collapsing around them, Chris and Claire escaped into the Antarctic night, the explosion consuming the final remnants of the Ashford Empire behind them. In October 2000, the nation of Afghanistan teetered on the brink of collapse. The provisional government, battered by years of unrest, had lost control of entire provinces. Civil war burned through the cities and towns, despite the presence of UN peacekeepers stretched thin across the region. With stability slipping away, the US intervened directly. Under the banner of counterinsurgency support, American forces established forward operating bases and began covert deployments deep into the contested territory. Among these units was Coyote 6, a special operation task force, dispatched to cities 70 miles northwest of their base, an urban center that had fallen entirely into insurgent hands. Insertion began smoothly, but moments before touchdown, one of the task force helicopters erupted in flame. Enemy fire tore through its fuselage, sending it spiraling into the darkened streets below. Alpha 2, trapped inside the wreckage, found themselves surrounded almost instantly as insurgent fighters flooded the crash site. Orders from command were unambiguous. The situation was too unstable for a rescue attempt. The remaining units were to withdraw and regroup. But the Mad Dogs, a battle-hardened squad with a reputation for ignoring impossible odds, made their choice. They broke formation, defied their directives, and inserted themselves directly into the occupied zone to retrieve their comrades. The city was a maze of shattered concrete and flickered firefights as the Mad Dogs pushed their way towards the crash. Gunfire echoed in the alleys, and bodies lay where they had fallen. When they reached the downed helicopter, the metal was still glowing from the heat. Inside, amidst the twisted steel, they discovered one survivor, barely clinging to life. They dragged him free as the insurgents mounted a fresh assault, forcing the Mad Dogs into desperate retreat. Shi, the survivor from the wreckage, was dragged away by the Mad Dogs as the insurgent reinforcements arrived with heavier armaments. A rocket launcher streaking across the trail ahead. The Mad Dogs dove into a nearby structure as a blast tore the street apart behind them. With their radio calls met by silence and their extraction impossible, they made a grim decision. When nightfall covered the city in darkness, they would begin the 70-mile trek back to base on foot through hostile territory. Hours later, insurgent fighters dragged their bodies of the remaining Alpha 2 operators to the central square. Beneath the stone shadow of a toppled statue, they strung the corpses up like trophies, doused them in petrol, and prepared to set them ablaze for all the city to see. And then, something happened that none of them could have expected. One of the bodies moved. As the insurgents stepped back in shock, the soldier's limbs twitched unnaturally, head lifting in stiff, jerking motions, and a low, guttural moan rose from his throat, an inhuman sound that froze the gathered fighters where they stood. In the burning square of a dying city, the dead began to rise. And with that single impossible moment, the nightmare in Afghanistan truly began. The Mad Dogs staggered through the gates of their forward operating base, exhausted and covered in dust from the ruined city. They carried Shi not on a stretcher, but sealed inside a body bag. Despite the unmistakable signs of life, the body remained zipped. None of them spoke of the wrongness they had witnessed during their escape. The Mad Dogs exchanged uneasy glances, each quietly questioning the same possibility. They had stepped into something covert, something involving augmented soldiers and classified experiments, Soldiers who saw too much in operations like that did not always live long after returning home. Their whispered fears were cut short by the arrival of Shinmi, a warrant officer serving as the base's radio operator. She asked him about their comms, how long they tried, and what frequencies they used. Her expression shifted as they explained the sounds they encountered in the field. In that moment, she revealed the truth without meaning to. Their calls had not gone unheard. They had been ignored. A choice that had been made somewhere above them in the chain of command. A choice that expected the Mad Dogs to die in that burning city, alongside Alpha 2, and every secret buried there. And now that they arrived, the danger around them would only begin to tighten.